Hi everyone, hope you're all well. My name's Vanessa and I am an online coach, personal trainer and board certified behaviour analyst. I've lived with type 1 diabetes now for over 25 years. I work with people who also have type 1 or type 2 diabetes to help them to improve their healthy behaviours and to help them get to where they want to be in terms of their health and fitness related goals. I am also a Freestyle Libre ambassador and I have been for over a year now, and yeah, I just have the passion to help others who also live with diabetes like myself, because I fully understand what it's like to live with type 1 diabetes, having to consistently check glucose levels, adhere to medical regimes, and it can be hard. Growing up with type 1 diabetes, as a teenager I found it really hard. I found it difficult to control my glucose levels, and I found it difficult just to have motivation to participate in healthy habits. So it was the diagnosis of retinopathy when I was 18 that gave me the shock that I needed to modify and change my own behaviour for the better. So I started to participate in a lot more healthier behaviours, which I found in turn helped with my own glucose control. So I wanted to learn a little bit more about it. So I went to university to study psychology for my undergraduate degree, and then I went on to study behaviour analysis at a master's level at university, which then led me to become a board certified behaviour analyst. So yeah, that's a little bit more about me. So today I wanted to talk to you about behaviour change and the importance of behaviour change, and to provide some tips and tricks on how to successfully alter and modify behaviour for the better, helping to improve healthy habits based on the science of human behaviour. Behaviour analysis is basically the science of human behaviour, and it looks at how our environment around us has an impact on our behaviour and how it modifies our behaviour. So the job of a behaviour analyst is trying to identify strategies with regards to how to modify behaviour for the better. So how to increase positive behaviour whilst trying to decrease negative behaviour. Now, behaviour is absolutely anything that we do. Eating healthy foods is a behaviour. Exercising is a behaviour. Eating too much junk food is a behaviour. So it's looking at those behaviours and trying to identify how can we either increase these behaviours and how can we decrease the behaviours that we don't want to see. Now, it might be that you're at the point where you're ready to change your behaviour. There's certain things that you want to work on. There's certain things that you want to improve, whether that's eating a little bit healthier, whether that's exercising a little bit more, whether that's drinking a little bit more water, or maybe reducing the number of fizzy drinks that you have each day. Now, when it comes to changing our behaviour, the most important thing that we need to take into account is if we're ready to. We've got to take into account what we refer to as the stages of change. There's the pre-contemplation stage, where we're aware that something needs to change but we're not ready. There's the contemplation stage where, again, we know that we need to change our behaviour but we're just not quite there yet. And then the next stage is the preparation stage, and that's where we've accepted, you know what, we need to change our behaviour and we're preparing for that. So we may get a gym membership, we may buy a drinks bottle to fill with water, we may go to the supermarket and buy the healthy food that we're ready to eat. And then the next stage is obviously where we make that change and we put things in place in order to change for the better. So that's where we'll start to drink a little bit more water, we'll start to exercise a little bit more, and we're in the process of actually participating in that behaviour. Now, of course, once we've done that, we want to make sure that we maintain a behaviour, because with any behaviour, it's easy for us to do it maybe for like a week or 2 weeks and then for it to fizzle out. And the aim is to maintain that behaviour so that it becomes a habit. In terms of healthy habits, they usually say that for something to become a habit, we need to be participating in that behaviour for a good 21 days. So it's all about trying to maintain the new habits that we're creating, and by putting strategies in place to allow us to do that as well. What we don't want to do is change too many things at once so that it becomes a little bit too overwhelming. We want to do it step by step so that we're able to maintain those new habits and those new behaviours. So if you feel that you're ready to change your behaviour and your habits for the better, you're ready to increase healthy habits, you're ready to reduce any unhealthy habits, and you feel ready to start that, then here are a couple of evidence-based strategies in behaviour analysis that's going to help you get to where you want to be. Strategy 1 refers to shaping, and what this means is that we want to reinforce successive approximations of the target behaviour. So if you imagine the target behaviour being to get to the top of a flight of stairs, what we would do is we would start off by taking the first step, and then 2 steps, and then 3 steps, and slowly shaping up that behaviour to get to the end goal. So I've got 3 examples. So for example, you may have someone who wants to increase the number of steps that they do per day, and they've got an end goal of walking 12,000 steps consistently every single day. Now, for someone who's not used to walking that much, going from, not walking at all to then trying to get 12,000 steps in per day, that can be quite a big jump. So by using shaping, what we can do is we can slowly reinforce each of those steps. So we'd start off by getting an individual to walk 5,000 steps per day. Once that's consistent over a certain period of time, we'd move on to 6,000. Once that's consistent, moving on to 8,000, then 9,000, 10,000, and so on, until they're then able to reach the 12,000 steps a day goal. Another example refers to checking our glucose levels. I currently have a client who didn't check her glucose levels at all in the day, and she had an end goal of wanting to check a lot more. So what we did is we used shaping to help to increase the number of times that she participated in that behaviour. So she had an end goal of checking 10 to 12 times per day. So we started off just by checking once per day. Then we moved on to 2 to 3 times per day, then 3 to 4 times, and we used shaping to slowly shape up the number of times that she participated in that behaviour, to the point now where she's consistently checking her glucose levels up to 12 times per day. So as well as increasing healthy behaviours, we also want to look at how we can decrease unhealthy behaviours. So just linking back to my own experience, I am one for fizzy drinks and diet drinks. I absolutely love diet drinks, and it got to a point where I was drinking a few too many cans of Diet Coke in the day. So I set myself my own goal of reducing the number of cans of Diet Coke that I was consuming each day. So I used shaping to slowly shape that behaviour to bring it down to 1 can per day. So I started off from going from 5 cans to 4 cans, 4 cans to 3 cans, and so on, until I managed to reach the 1 can per day, which was quite a big achievement for me. So by using shaping, I was able to create a healthier habit that was sustainable, and I wasn't putting too much pressure on myself either. So again, by slowly reinforcing those successive approximations of the target behaviour, it makes it so much easier to create new, healthier habits. The second strategy refers to environmental prompting. And what this basically means, it looks at how our environment and cues in our environment can modify our behaviour. So as an example, if we wanted to increase our fruit and veg consumption, we may place sticky notes on our fridge reminding us to have a portion of fruit and vegetables with the meal that we're about to make. Another example is if someone wants to increase their water intake, having a water bottle with times on the side and little reminders of when to drink that water by. So I know that by 9 a.m. I need to have consumed this much water. So again, an example of how something in the environment can have a positive impact on our behaviour. We can also look at how our environment can impact unhealthy behaviour. So for example, if biscuits and chocolate and foods that are very easily overconsumed are easily accessible in our environment, then we're more likely to participate in the behaviour of consuming those foods. So for example, if we've got biscuits that are on the side or on our desk, or we've got things that are within our view, we're more likely to consume those. So just by putting them out of reach in a different cupboard, or even in a different room, that can have a positive impact on our healthy behaviour because we're less likely to consume those foods. So by simply making small changes to our environment around us, this can set us up for success in terms of increasing healthy behaviour or decreasing unhealthy behaviour. Another really important strategy when it comes to improving and increasing healthy behaviour is taking into account what we call positive reinforcement. And that refers to putting things in place following a healthy behaviour that's more likely to make that behaviour reoccur again in the future. So, for example, life insurance companies are great at this. They may provide vouchers or money back based on individuals participating in 10,000 steps per day. Another example is a client of mine will reward herself with a treat meal every weekend based on eating healthy through the week. So based on her meeting her calorie goal, getting a protein source in with each meal, getting her fruit and vegetables in each day, if she's consistent with that in the week, then she will then reward herself at the weekend with a treat meal of her choice. So it's finding something that you're motivated by, something that you want to work towards, and by putting that in place and rewarding yourself with that after participating in a specific behaviour or skill, then you're more likely to solidify that healthy habit and healthy behaviour. So when it comes to healthy behaviour and when we have started to participate in new healthy behaviours, what's really important is that we are able to maintain those habits. And it is quite easy for us to slip out of those habits sometimes, especially if we're putting too much pressure on ourselves. There are going to be some days where we may not participate in those behaviours. There may be some weeks where we don't participate in those behaviours. But what's really important is to accept that that's okay and that these weeks will happen, whether it's being out of routine, being off work, being on holiday. The most important thing is just focusing on starting afresh the next day or the next week and putting in those strategies consistently and not putting too much pressure on ourselves as well. Because sometimes when we put too much pressure on ourselves to change our behaviour too quickly, then that's when it may not go the way that we want it to. So I just wanted to end by providing you all with a little message, and that is that when it comes to changing our healthy behaviour and improving our healthy habits, it's remembering that even the smallest step is still a step in the right direction, and you will get to where you want to be. You've just got to keep going. You've just got to remain positive and keep putting things in place that are going to help you get to where it is that you want to be. So I get asked so many questions, so I thought let's do a quick Q&A and let's go through some of the most common questions that I get asked. A behaviour analyst is a professional that looks at a behaviour and looks at how we can modify that behaviour for the better by looking at what's going on in our environment and making modifications to things in our environment to help to change that behaviour. Whereas a typical personal trainer works with an individual to help them to meet the health and fitness related goals, teaches them how to exercise, how to do specific exercises and movements, and how to improve their overall diet to help them towards meeting their goals. You want to start off small and focus on building that up over time. So look at what is doable at the minute. So what are you able to change right now, and what do you feel ready to change? So for example, that might be starting off by just moving that little bit more, or just adding a little bit more veg or protein to your diet. The thing is, what you don't want to do is change too many things at once so that it becomes unachievable and a little bit too much. So just focus on making small changes and building those up over time. Maybe looking firstly at something like your movement at the moment, the amount of exercise that you do, making little changes to your diet. This links in with behaviour analysis, and that looks at how the environment modifies our behaviour. So if we've got our family who are eating different things to us, we're more likely to follow on with what they're doing, or we're more likely to eat what they're eating. The main thing is, firstly, just to make sure that you have everything in place that you need. So if you're trying to follow a specific food plan, meal prep, so prepare that food in advance so that it's there ready to go. So just make sure that you're prepared, and it's going to be hard at first, but it's just kind of learning to say no, and then you get used to it over time. The main thing is just to try and make little tweaks each day. So setting an alarm, let's say every hour or every 2 hours, where you then do a little bit of a lap around the office, or do a couple of flights of stairs at home, up and down the stairs, maybe 3 or 4 times. And if you were to do that consistently each hour through the day, it all adds up by the end of the day in terms of the calories burnt. And it's just looking at when you do have time, whether that's just doing a little bit more activity at the weekend as opposed to in the week. Even if you were to do exercise twice at the weekend and then maybe once in the week. There's also the option of doing it first thing in the morning when you get up before work, so that you're ready for the day. So yeah, it's just kind of looking at your day and looking at where you can fit little things in. So if you have been exercising and eating well and you've met the original goal that you had in place, the next thing is to try and envision yourself in the future. Where do you want to be? Is that linked in with maybe more fat loss? Is it linked in with building a little bit of lean tissue? Is it all about maintaining the healthy habits that you've created? So it's trying to kind of sit down and think, well, what is it that where do you want to be in the next 6 months? And trying to set little goals from there. It's always good to have goals, have something to work towards, because when we don't have goals to work towards, that's when we're more likely to go backwards. So it's all about setting yourself little mini goals every couple of months and just going from there. So in terms of pushing yourself and you're feeling a little bit exhausted, it's also important to listen to your body, because sometimes if we're doing too much, that can also have a negative effect, and we want to try and keep stress levels as low as we can. Our bodies don't differentiate between emotional stress, physical stress, stress from losing our purse, stress from being late for work. To our body, stress is stress. So sometimes if we're overdoing it a little bit, or maybe we're doing too much exercise, sometimes our bodies can tell us that, and we'll feel a lot lower in energy. Our motivation may drop as well. So it's all about looking at what you're doing at the moment and looking at what you can change to help to replenish your energy stores. It may be that you're doing a bit too much. And it may be that maybe you're not eating enough. I know that when people tend to diet down, they may do it quite drastically, where they'll take the calories from a certain point right down to a really low amount, and that can then cause us to feel a lot lower in energy. But that's why it's always good to have a coach who can basically help you along the way and help to identify how many calories you need to be having to help you to meet your goals, and how much exercise you need to be doing to help you to meet your goals. The most important thing is to think, what do you value? Like, what are your values? And then it's about setting goals around those values. So if one of your values is to be healthy, then setting a goal around health. If one of your values is, you know, maybe to lose a little bit of body fat, then you could have a goal around that. If one of your values is to get a little bit stronger and feel stronger, it may be that you have a goal around building strength in the gym. So it all depends on what your values are and also what's doable at the moment. So, you know, if you're very, very limited for time at the minute, if you're working a lot of hours in the week, a goal around, you know, a 6-week fat loss goal, which requires really intensive training, may not be the best goal for now. So it's all about looking at what time do you have, what are your values, and what's doable at the moment. People think fat loss or building muscle happens quite quickly, and it doesn't. It takes a lot of time and consistency. And it's also looking as well, if, for example, your goal is fat loss, the most important thing when it comes to fat loss is creating a calorie deficit. So sometimes we think that we're eating in a calorie deficit when actually we're not. And this is why tracking food's quite important when it comes to fat loss, because then you're able to then identify whether you're under or overeating. And if you're struggling to see, you know, changes, again, just giving it time, continuing to be consistent. This is really important with any new healthy behaviour or healthy habit, is that we may start to do it, but the most important thing is maintaining that habit and maintaining that behaviour. And maintaining these habits is what then leads to the overall outcome that we're wanting to achieve. So if we're wanting to drop body fat, we know that we need to keep up, for example, a certain amount of steps per day for a long period of time. Now, they say that it takes around 21 days for something to become a habit when followed consistently. So it's just making sure that you're putting things in place to remind you to participate in this habit or this behaviour. You're, you know, setting yourself little mini goals each day. So it's just making sure that you're keeping yourself on track, and sometimes having someone to be accountable to as well, whether that's your partner, one of your parents, or even a coach as well. There's plenty of apps that help to guide us along the way to keep up with our healthier habits. So, for example, apps that allow us to track our daily goals. There's apps that allow us to track the total calorie intake that we take in each day. There's apps that set reminders for us to walk a certain distance or walk a certain amount of steps. One of my favourite resources that I've got access to is my watch, which provides me with information on the number of steps that I've taken each day, the number of minutes of exercise I've participated in each day, and even things like water bottles that have the time on the side so that we're aware of how much water we need to drink by a certain time, which helps to visually prompt the behaviour of drinking, as an example. So yeah, there's plenty of resources out there. It's just finding what works for you, and it all depends on what your goal is. So I hope you found it useful, everything that I've gone through, and I hope you can take something away from it today. So now I am going to challenge you to firstly write down what your values are, what is important to you at this moment in time regarding health, regarding fitness, regarding you. And what I want you to do from there is write down 3 goals that you want to work towards. From there, try and identify, how can I make a start towards these goals, linking back with what I've discussed previously about shaping up our behaviour, putting different prompts in the environment to help you to achieve that. I wish you the best of luck, and remember, we're all here to support one another. All of us have some health or fitness related goal that we'll want to work towards, so it's all about supporting one another and just giving it a go.